Welcome to the hardest boss fight in V Rising, Dracula. I have seen a lot of people complain about this fight, so I'm here to provide some relief. I was originally going to wait until I beat him with every weapon, however, seeing all these complaints about him, I figured I would just go ahead and release a general how-to guide. By the way, this is only for the normal difficulty, not brutal. Now, let's get into it so you can get back to usurping the throne. We're going to start off with some general recommendations. These are not facts, these are just things that I think is going to help anyone out with this fight. Number 1, use a melee weapon, preferably one with some sort of dodge. I'm sure it can be done with ranged, however I found that the most effective way to dodge a lot of this stuff is to be really close to him. And obviously a melee weapon is better for this. Personally, I think the standard sword is goated for this fight. The recast on the second ability helps so much with moving and dodging. But again, you do you. Number 2, have a defensive ability, preferably one that can take more than just one hit. I used a lightning counter because I think it's sick, and I have a gem that makes it go burr. Unless you play it perfectly, your dodge is not going to be enough to handle all the random stuff that you're going to have to deal with, so please do yourself a favor here and get a defensive spell. Now, one more recommendation. I recommend having at least some sort of leech, some sort of heal on damage, because you're often going to get hit by some random small amount of damage, and that's going to stack up, and healing will make a ton of difference over the whole fight, I promise. I actually do manage to beat him in the video without potions, however, obviously more damage is gonna help, so if you have the chance, you should make those when you fight him. Now, let's get into the general game plan and then break down his moves. So, the good thing about this fight is that everything is very telegraphed. If you know what you're looking for, you can see these moves from a mile away. With that in mind, you need to not get ahead of yourself and use the abilities too early or when you shouldn't use them. A lot of the moves in this fight can be handled without abilities. There are also 2 spots where you can use your ult very reliably, and you should hold it until then to get the maximum damage out of it, unless your ult helps you dodge something. The next tip I have for you, when you dodge any of his moves and are close to him, make sure you are hitting him while he is still in the move. He has a lot of health and you need all these little paper cuts to add up. Next tip, and this one is the second most important, stay moving. Even when you're hitting him, try to be mobile. This fight has a lot of moving parts, and just being consistently moving will dodge a lot of them for you. And the last general game plan tip is to break all the crystals that show up. This is really the most important one. This goes for really any boss in the game. At any time a boss summons something, it's a good idea to break it as soon as possible. And this is no different for those crystals. They stack up, and I have no proof, but I swear that he is more likely to summon crystals if one is already out. It really feels like if he has one, he'll guaranteed summon a second one shortly. Now, let's get into the moves. Alright, so when the fight starts, you'll get a pretty good opportunity to whack him here. Make sure you do that, as I said, the damage will stack up, but this is also the first window where you can get your ult off pretty safely depending on the ult. You have a lot of free wind-up time if your ability has a long cast time. When you're close to him in the beginning of the fight, which is what you should do, he will only do one of 2 moves, that I have seen anyway. The first one is this slam attack. This one is the best attack because you can actually just walk right behind him and dodge it easy. If you're for some reason not close to him, you can see those red ovals on the ground that show you where the spikes are going to go after he smashes, but this attack is very easy to deal with. Just walk behind him and keep whacking him while you do it. The other move he might do when you're up close to him, and you're just going to have to commit this to memory, is he's going to do a left-right sword swing. This move always starts on his right and your left. It's like Adam's attack, but without the third hit. You handle this by walking right to dodge the first attack and walking left to dodge the second attack, all while hitting him to get all this damage in. If you get hit by this, don't panic. This doesn't hurt you that much. You just need to get used to dodging this because it does stack up. And it's free damage once you get it down, and who doesn't love that? Now, after he does one of these 2 moves, he will also almost always do this move here, where he teleports away from you and then throws out 2 spinning blades. I've seen you guys get worked by this move, but I'm happy to tell you it's very easy to dodge and essentially gives you free damage later on. So when you see him teleport and his arms go down to throw the things, just make sure you are walking back and to the right or the left, whichever side you have the most space with, but mainly make sure you're walking back. Just hold back. Don't use an ability for this, you have ample time to move out of the way, just with the Lamborghinis. Now, you can see in this clip that I actually stopped walking backwards, which is kind of a mistake in terms of consistency. When he does this axe throw, he will always follow it up with with one of two moves. The first one is the one where he flies at you and slashes at you. If you have a counter or dodge, you can easily deal with it, but if you don't, it's pretty hard to not get hit by it. The second one is the one that you want him to do, which is the wolf form. You can get him to always do the wolf form by walking back far enough when he does the spinning blade move. So for more consistent fights, whenever you see him doing the spinning blade, just make sure you keep walking back until you hear the howl. When he does this wolf form, just stand there, really. Also, pro tip, once you get comfy enough with the wolf form, when he does do it, you can walk back and start healing in blood mend. The wolf form is very slow to attack. He will run at you and then he will always jump over you. There is never a head-on attack from the wolf form. He'll jump over you and then turn around with a sword slash. When you see his physical body, you can dash through him and start hitting him. You might have to walk forward because when he slashes, it moves him farther away from you, but it's not too bad. Once you see it once, you'll get it down. Now that you have that move down, you have 3 moves that you can very reliably deal with, and he's going to do these a lot, so make sure you learn how to do damage while you're dealing with them. You're going to see them a ton. Now we move on to the 4th most common move. He does this lunge move where he'll throw out 2 bats with his hand and then dash to a side and then try to lunge at you with his sword. This one is again super easy to dodge if you're looking out for it. When he dodges, just make sure you walk to the left or right from him. Just make sure it's perpendicular and you should dodge it just by walking. And again, just make sure you stay moving and you'll see it's easy. Now those are his 4 most basic and common moves, but there's 2 more that I would call spells that he will do randomly after one of his other common moves. The first one is when he floats and makes this red ring around him. Now this is very startling at first, but I promise you it's super easy to deal with and actually one of the best moves to start hitting him. So when you see this, just start whacking him. Start hitting the crap out of him and keep an eye out for where those red orbs start coming out from him. You'll see that there's 3 spots they'll start coming out of. Just make sure you are in a gap in between those 3 spots and you can just wail on them for free. If you have a counter like Ward of the Damned or one that benefits from blocking multiple attacks, you can use it here on the red orbs and stack up a bunch of free counters. I'll say the Ward of the Damned might not be the best because the skeletons are just going to die pretty quick anyway with the area effect attack he's about to do. Anyway, after you wail on him for a second, you'll see this red circle getting closer, but don't worry and don't go near it. There are 2 ways to deal with the end of this move. The safest way is to simply wait until the red wall disappears and then dash out of the ability circle. The second way, which is a lot more of a Haas move, is to just keep whacking him and time your dodge with the slam of the move. You can dodge through it and not take any damage. This is one of my favorite moves because you really do just get to whack on him the whole time. Now on to the second spell move, which is where he disappears and then summons a bunch of bats. There are 2 things to keep in mind here. 1, and most important, do not use your dodge. You need to hold on to that for when he shows up. And 2, make sure you're walking back and forth. The bats aim where you are going to walk, so when you're walking in a direction, the laser will lock on in front of you, you need to walk the other direction. Once you get this down, it's super easy to dodge all of them, but remember, it's better to get hit by 1 or 2 bats than to get caught by the end of this move. After about 10 seconds, he will reappear and try to grab you. This is where you use your dash. If you don't have it, it's possible to walk away from him and dodge it, especially if you have a move or a spell that increases your move speed, but you're gonna want to try to use your dodge for it. And boom, just like that, you have the first 50% of this boss fight done. Super simple once you've learned it. Now, once he falls to around half health, he's gonna teleport to the middle of the ring, say some hard ass one-liner about you being weak, and then break off his armor and break the pillars around him. He's gonna actually look super sick when this happens, but that's not important. What matters is when he lands, you need to be close to him. You'll have a good window to whack on him, including your ult. This is the second window where you have a consistent time to use your ult. Now, from this point, he can do a couple of moves, so you just need to pay attention, but the most common one that he will do is he'll summon this red crystal. As I said in the beginning, you need to break this as fast as you can. It should be your primary goal, because if too many of these show up, you will have nowhere to move without your dodge, and you need to hold on to that. If you can get close before it fully spawns, you don't have to worry about getting past this red ring wall, but if you didn't get there fast enough, you'll either need to tank the damage, dodge through it, or use an ability. If you have to dodge through it, try to use your dodge to also dodge a move from Dracula at the same time, just for efficiency. Now, these crystals are a little tanky, but he is not near as up close as the first phase, so you should be able to do it with relative ease, especially after he's doing a couple of his long range moves. Now, on to the second phase moves. I will start with one that's probably going to kill the most people. It's an upgraded version of the left-right sword swings, but now he does 4 swings and they're faster and curve at the end. Now, it is still possible to walk right, left, right, left, and dodge them all. However, it's pretty tough to get down, so I really recommend just using your dodge or counter if things get a little hectic. And remember, be safe rather than sorry, because if you get hit by one, you're just gonna get hit by another anyway. So use it earlier rather than later. If you can get far enough away from this move, because it curves, you can actually just ignore all of it, which is great if you're wailing on the crystals. But this one will take some personal practice, but I really recommend just using an ability if you're struggling with it too much. The next common move he will do is an upgraded lunge move. He'll dash in a direction, and you will see a very large red carpet basically, where he will lunge at you. If you're ready for this one, it's super easy to dodge. You can just walk perpendicular just like the last lunge move. But if you're caught out, don't be afraid to just use an ability or a dodge to handle this. You should have enough time before the next move that you need to dodge again. Now, this is probably the most common move you will see. He'll summon a bunch of balls behind him in a line and then shoot them at you in a line. This one's pretty straightforward. There's a perfect range where you can just walk around them. However, because of how slow this is, there are a lot of ways you can just dodge this, either with a sword ability, teleport to them, teleport to a crystal, dodge, counter. There's so many ways, and you have a lot of time to get ready to do this. Again, this is great if you have a counter that benefits from multiple counters. If you do get this, it really doesn't hurt too much, so don't blow your whole kit to get away from it. You can take one or two of these red orbs. I will say though, if you can use a counter at the last second, you should do that because he can do the lunge right after, and you can actually counter both moves with one counter. Now, on to one of the most oppressive moves. He's going to teleport into the middle of the stage, put up walls of fire, and start shooting a bunch of red balls at you. I'm happy to tell you this move is pretty easy to dodge the majority of it. All you need to do is back away to the edge of the arena and walk in one direction. If you're close to him, you're going to take a bunch of damage, so really just walk to the edge and walk in one direction around the arena in a circle. At some point, you're either going to need to dodge through the wall or dodge the balls. If you can, I would just dodge through the wall and keep going in the direction you've been going until you get to a second wall where you will use your counter to start walking the other direction. This move should end before you have to deal with the third wall. Now, you really won't be able to do any damage during this move, but that's okay. Just worry about not taking any damage yourself. Getting hit by a couple of these is fun, but it will stack up if you get hit by like 10 of them. Now, the next oppressive move he'll do is this sword rain. I think this one's probably one of the hardest ones to successfully dodge if you're unlucky. I don't really understand the pattern of these that they follow. However, for my testing, just walking in one direction is a generally good way to dodge all of them. As you get more comfortable with dodging them, you can actually start attacking him during, but he doesn't do this too often, so you can just worry about dodging them and then damage him after the move is over. Also, don't forget, he can still do the disappear and summon a bunch of bats move. It functions the same, there's no new upgrade to it, but just be aware that it can happen for the entire fight. His last common move is where he'll dash into the air and come down with his big guillotine-like swing. Just use your dodge for this move or a counter. It's pretty quick and hard to dodge without an ability, so just use one. Also, don't walk too close to his shadow form. It will hit you. If you're not too close to it, it literally won't do anything, but if you're close, he will swing on you, so keep that in mind. Now you know all of his moves. Congrats, that's the whole fight. This fight is still hard and will take some attempts. It's a very fast moving fight, but when you break it down into parts like these, I really think it makes it easier. So make sure you're using any downtime you have in the fight to heal, to damage him, or to break crystals. I'm gonna play my fight now where I beat him, and you can see from start to finish what I do. I don't play it perfectly, but that just shows you that you can make mistakes. Thanks for watching and happy hunting.
There is no escape from your fate. You will learn to obey. The vortex of blood where all things end. You imitation. This is what it means to be king. Drown in hatred within the mist mountains. Fresh blood. It is too late to beg for your life. The ground weeps and wings. I am the master of light and shadow. No mercy for the weak. Endless hatred. This is the end. I am the ghost of years. Feel the bloodstorm's tide. I am the immortal king. The ground weeps sanguine tears. This is eternal. The ground weeps sanguine tears. I am the ghost of your years. In the end, my power reigns supreme. This is the end! Your end is in the shadows. Relieve on your inevitable demise. Fleeing will not save you. Die for your king. The ground weeps sanguine tears. Within the mist unseen. Feel the bloodstorm's tide.